secciones. Están la sección de biodiversidad y también el Parque Natural de Cap de Creus, que es el área donde se centra la mayor parte de las acciones del proyecto. También tenemos la Diputación de Girona, que tiene mucha experiencia en el control de invasoras, de especies vegetales, el Museo de Ciencias Naturales de Barcelona, que de hecho forma parte del Instituto Botánico y tiene experiencia ciencia ciudadana, la Federación de Viveristas de Cataluña y una asociación de voluntarios que se llama Flora Catalana. De hecho, Flora Catalana tiene unos 2.000 miembros aproximadamente y es como un referente en Cataluña sobre temas de botánica. Vale. Bueno, nuestro proyecto se centra, no sé si se ve muy bien, en la parte norte-este de la península, en la zona de Girona, Costa Brava, Cap de Creus. ¿Y por qué se centra allí? Pues porque nuestro ámbito de trabajo es el hábitat de interés comunitario 1240 de acantilados con vegetación y limoniums endémicos. Para este hábitat, pues Natura 2000 tiene designados 488 lugares de interés y más o menos en España se supone que hay unas 1.266 hectáreas de este hábitat. En la Costa Brava tenemos más o menos la mitad y en Cap de Creus una cuarta parte. O sea que es el lugar donde se tiene que trabajar en este hábitat. Y el estado de conservación a nivel de la Unión Europea se considera desfavorable. Esto quiere decir que no va a desaparecer, pero que es necesario tomar medidas para para recuperar un hábitat favorable. Aquí hay una fotografía, no creo que se vea demasiado bien, de lo que sería el hábitat. Son las rocas, justo las rocas que tocan al mar, con vegetación. Es una zona que es importante tanto para especies endémicas de plantas como para insectos y aves y también otros organismos. Por ejemplo, un liquen que es rocela, no me acuerdo muy bien el nombre, pero... Y uno de los problemas que tenemos en este hábitat es que justo al lado del hábitat tenemos casas con jardines y es un lugar que está muy frecuentado porque justo al lado pasan lo que se llaman caminos de ronda, que son senderos por donde pasa la gente, ¿no? Y esto es una presión muy grande para el mantenimiento del hábitat. También entre las especies endémicas que queremos favorecer con este proyecto tenemos dos limoniums, que son Limonium tremolsi, Limonium geronense, y también otra especie que se considera que está en peligro, que es Eselifarreñi, de la cual solo se conocen actualmente 4 poblaciones y creo que en total son, no más de 1.000 individuos, creo, más o menos. Vale. Esto es Limonium geronense, que es endémico de la Costa Brava Norte. Esto es Limonium tremolsi, que es endémico de la zona de la Costa Brava. Y esta es Eselifarreñi, que es una plantita muy pequeñita y que es endémica estricta de Cap de Creus. Y de hecho es una de las especies más emblemáticas o más importantes a nivel de conservación porque se considera que está en peligro de extinción. Esto sería el aspecto que tiene el hábitat actualmente. Esto es en Palamós, en la Costa Brava central. Y las Bueno, no se ve nada bien, pero lo que es de un verde más clarito son opuntias, chumberas, y está, pues bueno, plagado. Y aquí otra fotografía que es bastante habitual de encontrar, estas plantas que se ven por aquí, bueno, que supongo que intuís por aquí, son Kalanchoe houtoni, que es una especie que no está catalogada en ninguna lista oficial ni de especies invasoras, pero que sí que tiene un impacto importante en nuestro hábitat. El proyecto, por tanto, trabaja con plantas invasoras ya conocidas y catalogadas de interés comunitario, etcétera, etcétera, pero también con otras especies que son invasoras a nivel solo de Cataluña o a nivel solo de la zona de Cap de Creus. Por ejemplo, Gazania rigens, que aquí en las jardineras de por aquí he visto algunas, pero bueno, más que nada que es una invasora que en la zona de Cap de Creus es muy importante. Y también con muchas otras especies que se han visto que se están naturalizando en zona de Costa Brava y que tienen un cierto potencial invasor. Por tanto, el objetivo del proyecto básicamente es, bueno, tenemos muchos objetivos específicos, como en todos los live, cuantificados con números y muy detallados, pero el resumen sería esto. Queremos mejorar la gestión de las plantas invasoras para restaurar el hábitat 1240 y dar mejores condiciones para el desarrollo de los endemismos que antes os he comentado. Y también, por otra parte, queremos que tomemos conciencia todos, no solo el público general o los jóvenes, sino todos, desde el mundo científico al sector productivo, y tomemos conciencia de la problemática y cambiemos un poco la mirada, ¿no? Porque, bueno, una de las cosas que hemos estado viendo es que lo verde es sinónimo de vida y de que todo va bien, y no es cierto. Dentro de lo que son plantas, hay plantas que deberían estar en el lugar donde crecen y otras que no, ¿no? Y esto es una de las cosas que hemos visto que la gente pues tiene esta percepción y deberíamos cambiar un poco esto. ¿Cómo lo hacemos? Antes ya os he comentado que tenemos 4 áreas básicas de trabajo, que son la prevención, detección temprana, respuesta rápida y erradicación y, sobre todo, también comunicación. En cuanto a prevención, lo que estamos haciendo, estamos trabajando, es, básicamente esto se coordina desde la Federación de Viveristas de Cataluña, y lo que hemos hecho es constituir un grupo de trabajo colaborativo sobre plantas invasoras, que es un grupo formado por unas 10-15 personas aproximadamente, expertas, y que incluye tanto a personas de la Administración, gestores del medio natural, investigadores, personas de jardines botánicos, viveristas, paisajistas. También hay alguien del sector turístico, bueno, un poco de todo, ¿no? Y el objetivo de este grupo de trabajo es elaborar una serie de listas de plantas que son relevantes para el proyecto, ¿no? Tenemos 3 listas, 2 listas de plantas no recomendadas y una lista de plantas recomendadas. De hecho, esto está en proceso, no las tenemos aún, las deberíamos tener, pero aún no están a punto, pero bueno, ya llegarán algún día. La lista de consenso y la lista de vigilancia son de especies vegetales ornamentales o de interés comercial que son invasoras o están catalogadas o no, pero que tienen un impacto en el área del proyecto. La de consenso, la de consenso básicamente son las que sí que de lleno afectan al área del proyecto. Las de vigilancia son especies que quizá no se han visto aún en el área del proyecto, pero se tiene que estar alerta por si acaso. Y la lista blanca pues será una lista de especies seguras, es decir, especies ornamentales. Siempre estamos pensando en especies que se comercializan y serán especies ornamentales que no tienen un efecto negativo o un impacto negativo en el hábitat. A partir de estas listas se elaborará un código de conducta para el uso de estas especies con una etiqueta de calidad, y la intención de todo esto es impulsar un poco la actualización del marco legal, que está, bueno, siempre va mucho más lento que las plantas, sobre todo, y que todos los trabajos que se puedan realizar a nivel de gestión o de investigación. De detección temprana hemos creado 2 redes de ciencia ciudadana, una que es de observadores, que le llamamos, y otra que es de voluntariado. La de observadores puede acceder cualquier persona, todas se desarrollan a través de la plataforma iNaturalist, y la red de voluntariado tiene una implicación mucho mayor por parte de las personas que forman parte de ella y sirve para monitorizar a nivel biológico y ecológico pues una treintena de especies de flora invasora que son las prioritarias para el área del proyecto, en unos 100 transectos que hemos delimitado a lo largo de la Costa Brava. Bueno, estos son el mapa de transectos, distintas. Hemos elaborado muchas fichas sobre las plantas, una clave dicotómica, un protocolo de seguimiento, todo para que los voluntarios puedan tener toda la información posible. También, más o menos cada mes, se hace una visita, una salida guiada con ellos para resolver dudas, para darles herramientas para que puedan hacer el seguimiento de forma adecuada. En cuanto a la respuesta rápida, pues lo que se va a intentar hacer es un modelo basado en unas herramientas de acceso libre, que son RISMAP-R, desarrolladas en Australia, que lo que permiten es modelizar la susceptibilidad del hábitat para la distribución potencial de cada una de las especies invasoras. Y esto se hará con esta treintena de especies que trabaja el proyecto de forma prioritaria. En cuanto a la erradicación, trabajamos tanto en zonas públicas como en jardines privados, y en los jardines privados lo que se ha hecho es contactar puerta a puerta con un centenar de casas, de jardines, y se ha contactado con ellos. Más o menos la mitad han respuesto positivamente o estarían de acuerdo en llevar a cabo acciones que les proponemos de control desde el proyecto, y ahora pues estamos pendientes de recibir la autorización definitiva, porque uno de los problemas con los propietarios privados es que muchos de los propietarios privados de las fincas que están justo al lado del mar no viven en estas casas, porque son casas vacacionales totalmente, y pues viven en Alemania, en Italia, en otros países, y es más complicado. En cuanto a control biológico, control de invasoras, trabajamos con 3 especies, opuntias, táxones, mejor dicho, opuntias, Carpobrotus y Gazania. En opuntia trabajamos en control biológico en Opuntia ficus indica, utilizando la cochinilla del carmín, que ya de forma natural existe en la zona, y lo que se ha hecho es, en las zonas donde no ha llegado aún, se han insertado, pues, bueno, se han inoculado las palas con este insecto. Y también se hace el control químico en las zonas de jardines privados. En Carpobrotus trabajamos en control manual y mecánico, y lo que se va a hacer básicamente es, bueno, se tiene mucha experiencia en trabajo horizontal, pero se quiere trabajar ahora en condiciones de verticalidad de los acantilados, que no es fácil. Y por último, en Gazania Regions no existe un protocolo de control, y lo que se va a hacer por una parte es control químico, que se han iniciado los trabajos ahora, en primavera, y en control mecánico manual, que se realizará a principios del año que viene. En cuanto a comunicación, pues, bueno, inicialmente realizamos una encuesta muy, bueno, pequeñita, por decirlo de alguna forma, sobre la percepción que tenían las personas. Nuestro interés era saber qué pensaban las personas o cómo veían las personas de la zona, cómo veían las plantas invasoras, sobre todo en relación al paisaje. Y vimos que, bueno, que hay de todo, pero que sí que es verdad que en general la gente no sabe nada de plantas. Y eso es lo primero que quizás se tiene que trabajar, ¿no? Porque había cosas curiosas, como alguien que te decía que un árbol no es una planta. Bueno, eso es curioso, y hay que trabajar en ese sentido. Tenemos una serie de acciones de comunicación y divulgación general, también una acción dedicada a la divulgación técnica y networking. Y también durante este año, a finales de este año, iniciaremos todo lo que es transferencia y replicación, que la idea es replicar o intentar ver en qué zonas del Mediterráneo, sobre todo, con el hábitat en el que trabajamos o con la misma problemática, podemos aplicar lo que vamos a conseguir en nuestro proyecto. Y básicamente es esto, tenemos evidentemente trípticos, materiales promocionales, bueno, materiales educativos también. Hemos diseñado 4 juegos de mesa para distintos niveles de edad, una exposición divulgativa, se harán unas instalaciones florales y se realizan varias actividades divulgativas a lo largo del proyecto, en colaboración con entidades locales, que durante este primer año lo que hemos hecho es establecer colaboración más o menos con tenemos creo que unas 55 entidades, mayoritariamente ayuntamientos de la zona, pero que, bueno, que nos ayudan a divulgar y a promover el proyecto. Bueno, y ya está. Estos algunos de los miembros del equipo, que es un muy buen equipo. Y ya está, muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. A continuación seguimos con Alain de Bosch, que nos va a hablar de Live Bullfrog, the sterile triploid method for population control of aquatic invasive fauna. Pilot project on American bullfrog from Belgium. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for the introduction and the invitation. I want to give you a short introduction on our LIFE project, which is only a small project. We're only 4 partners, but it's a project that's carried out in Flanders, northern part of Belgium, 1.8 million. Normally we should end March 25, but there will be an extension of the project The partners are part of us, Pixel Bioresearch, who's the coordinating beneficiary. We have the Agency for Nature and Forest Management, the Institute for Nature and Forest Research, and an NGO, Natuurpunt. And we've got some co-financing from the province of Antwerp. The scope of the project is to establish a pilot case in having a management plan on a species as American bullfrog to stop the further dispersion of the species and have population control, and also try to eradicate isolated populations. So we're managing bullfrog in Flanders with the project. We also have a topic on transnational dissemination. So at the end of the project, we plan training in using the management techniques that we have developed, also the use of the sterile triploid method. And also, one of the things we run into is if you introduce sterile individuals in a population, of course, invasive species you're not to introduce. So we have to see how we can deal with this in a legal way. We don't have a problem in Flanders. Even in France there are possibilities, but sometimes the translation of the directive in national legislation is difficult to use sterile individuals. So we want to have an advice for Europe on that respect as well. And of course, supporting a wide social support for controlling invasive alien species, which, as we heard today and yesterday, often is a problem. So this is the beautiful guy. Sorry. So it's a fairly big frog, can weigh up to more 500 grams. The call is like a bull. It's a bullfrog. And we have a large population in a valley, which we try to control next to a few isolated populations. So, because we have all parts of the project is also, and we already started, say, 10 years ago with an Interreg project, and there we started to use Observation Org or our Dutch system, the Waarnemingen BE, to have sightings of bullfrogs coming in. And this is the basis of our early warning and rapid response system. And so we have to keep this running. So we have mails going out to people and information in spring, to bring it to attention of people to put the sightings on waarnemingen.be, and we have alerts coming in if there is a sighting noted. And we drafted up, or we renewed our early warning rapid response system. In the past, we had a specialist group of HILA, amphibian specialists, doing the control, because often if we go into communication and we have it on TV, we've got a lot of sightings coming in, but often they're false. It's green frog that people think that is bullfrog. So we always have to go and control whether this is right or not. And we have a different attitude, whether this is in populations that we know that are existing, or really the new places where it shows up. We also use environmental DNA, mainly also to detect the borders of distribution, because for the catch efforts, we're focusing on the borders and stop the further dispersion of the species. And so the catch efforts that we do are based on the eDNA sampling that we do in spring. So we know where we have to try to fight back and push back the American bullfrog. Because we use the droplet digital method, we can quantify the signal. So the colleagues from INBO developed a system that we can see whether a pond is really a reproductive pond or is just having a few individuals that just pass by. So by quantification of the signal gives you more opportunities than just being absent or present. And so this is working pretty well, and this is what we use to steer our teams in catching it and eradication. We use fight nets as an important tool, and in the past, they were catching everywhere, and now we focus on the edges. We changed the method now in spring. Now at this very moment we focus on adults, while 10 years ago in a year we would catch only 3 or 4 adults. We catch up to 300 adults now, so that has a severe impact on reproduction. And also if it's an isolated adult that is present, we will try to shoot them. And we also have training in shooting and in pike net catching. And up to now, we succeeded to eradicate 2 isolated populations that we had in Flanders. That's not just within the project. We already started in 2010, so it does take a little bit more effort than 2 years. So some of the catches, you know, you end up with an enormous number, especially of larvae. And in the past, we had to anesthetize them, kill them. They had to be collected and burned. So there was also carbon cost on animal welfare. From this year on, we'll be using them as a feed for a zoo. The otters are very fond of them, and also the bears, they eat everything, they say. So they'll be used as feeds in a zoo now. But we're improving our catch efficiency and catching much more larvae and adults every year. So we're learning. For the pilot that we do on the sterile triploid method, we started off with trying to use chemical sterilization. So I got the idea when I was on a conference in Vancouver, and I heard the story of the sea lamprey in the Great Lakes, and they were using bisazir. We tried that, and that didn't really work that well. And then my colleague Sarah came up with the idea to use the techniques from fish culture and produce sterile triploids. And our sterile triploid frogs are sterile, but still exhibit sexual behavior. And as we discovered thus far in the small enclosures, you know, it's, well, size matters, you know. The biggest frog, male frog, is taking the best position. And so it's a dominant frog, and that's important in using this technique. So we use hormones to stimulate the frogs that are catched, the eggs are produced, and we use at the right-hand side an installation from Canada, which is used in Canadian fish culture to use hydrostatic pressure to produce the triploids. And then we've got our enclosures, our ponds that are fenced where our larvae are growing now, which afterwards we will use in other enclosures to see how we can use the diploids and triploids together and how efficient this is. So we spend some time also and efforts in training of our teams, both in catching the larvae or adult frogs with fikes or shooting. And of course communication. In that respect, we made a few videos in English now. We had them in Dutch before, but you can see them on our website or on YouTube. And they explain the whole project or parts of the project, how to use the fike nets, for instance. Also to save bycatch, you know, using plastic bottles in the net so that if birds get in the net that they don't drown. We also screened the other species where the method would be applicable. So Chinese mitten crab or gambusia or pseudorasbra are species that are also possible to use to be used in this technique to help to control populations. So we also plan we started to work on a few fish species already. We also published most of our results, both on the eDNA as on the other stuff. And the last one is the general approach that we have was published in Environmental Challenges earlier this year already. So you can find all information also in the scientific publications that we have. So I'm happy to take the question and answers. And this is Sarah Decans, who cannot be here because she's working hard now. So the frogs are coming in and she's making all the batches of triploids for the moment. So she's got to run the lab and I can have the fun time in Malaga. Thank you.
Thank you, gracias. A continuación, damos paso a Frédéric de Life Mica, quien nos hablará sobre la gestión del coipú y la rata almizclera en Europa. Gracias.
Muchas gracias. Hola a todos. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I have to fix this here. So I'm going to talk to you. No, first of all, I want to say thank you, of course, for the invitation. I'm really glad to be here. I'm really excited to show our research and, yeah, to have a talk maybe afterwards. So I'm a veterinarian specialized on wildlife. I'm coming from the University of Veterinary Medicine, Hannover. You can see it up there. Hopefully, yes, you can. And the project is called MICA. It stands for Management of Invasive Koipu and Muskrat in Europe. So that's where the A comes from in the end. And yeah, we have a lot of partners. Start with the team, a great team, a transnational team, trans-border working team. The lead was taken by the Dutch water bodies from the very beginning, because the Dutch water bodies had the strongest motivation to come into action here, I think. So you see above the watership Rivierenland and the Uni of Waterschappen, so it's the main boards, have the lead in this project. You see the three countries. Germany is only the northern part of Lower Saxony, so only one federal state is involved here. And the University of Amsterdam from the Dutch side. From the Belgium side, there are the colleagues of the institution we've heard before shortly from INVO and from the Environment Agency. Yeah, and the German part is taken by us. So we are a University of Veterinary Medicine, specialized doing research on wildlife. And the Chamber of Lower Saxony, the Agricultural Chamber, they are dealing with muskrat catches and recently koipu catches too. And the yellow dots are the project areas, which are altogether, I think they are 12, and that is where we try to implement our new methods. Let me give you a very short background, so just to keep you up, what is koipu and muskrat doing in Germany, the Netherlands, and Belgium. So these two key species, the muskrat is originating from North America. Most of you will know that and be aware of that very well. It's a rodent, it's a smaller one if you compare these two, and it has a lot of offspring. It is mature at about 1 year, and it is present in stagnant and running waters, what is important. And the koipu, on the other hand, keep it in mind, left, the muskrat right, the koipu, I will follow up with this. So the koipu comes from South America originally, bigger one. There can be fellows above 10 kilograms, in fact. They also have a lot of offspring, and we're not absolutely sure of the offspring and reproduction behavior in Europe so far. So there are no hard facts for Germany or for the middle of Europe, and I see there should be research on that. So why are they invasive? I won't go into details here because this is not the stage for it. You're all aware of it, but just let me stress, the most important fact for this project to come into action was the ecological damage of vegetation and riverbanks. Not really, it was mainly the damage and destruction of dams and dikes. Because you might be aware the Netherlands are 2/3 of the country are below the sea level, and if the dams and dikes do not hold back flood, there are millions of people involved, critically endangered. And this is the same for northern Germany, and this is why, if you keep in mind that in Germany we have 16 federal states, there are some federal states in the north more involved in monitoring and management of these species, and others that are less. So the status quo, very quickly, I have the number of the catches in the Netherlands, blue muskrat left side, red koipu, different scale on the right, and you can see the muskrat is still quite high, and the koipu is somehow making its way down, but there needs to be some help. In Belgium, this is only for Flanders here. Keep that in mind, please, because I'm always mixing it up with the whole country. It's only Flanders. There are little, there are few numbers of muskrats and koipu in Flanders right now. And this is Lower Saxony, it's not Germany, it's Lower Saxony. And as I said, our colleagues, our team members, the Lower Saxony Agricultural Chamber of Agriculture is catching them professionally. So these are the only ones dealing professional in muskrat catches in all of the country. Only Lower Saxony and muskrat. And right now they are also taking care of koipu, but only on volunteer mode, because koipu is subject to hunting law in Germany in most of the federal states. You see it here. You see on the left the image, the cartography of Germany. The red crosses indicate the states where koipu is not subject to federal to hunting legislation. And you see in the middle distribution of muskrat. That is a different database used here. It is not the hunting, the game, not the game numbers. This is indicated by the hunters themselves to give an interpretation of what is in their country, what do they see. It's not what they shoot. And on the right, it's from the BFN. So this, yeah, gives you some insight on what is the data availability. And that was, when we come to the objects of our project, the first thing. We wanted to see how could we now use innovative methods for monitoring and management of koipu and muskrat, also evaluate the impact on biodiversity, of course, and raise awareness of the problem and reach people outside. So this was our step. I really take this serious towards a transnational management approach, because as you might have seen among all of your projects here, they are cool and crazy work on a local scale, but nevertheless the animals don't care for borders, and I really think we have to work together on this. That's why we're here. And we saw very quickly at the very beginning of the project, when we wanted to combine our catch data, that there was no reliable database that could be used. So we discussed, and we had challenges to face. We said, okay, we go to GBIF. We decided upon putting our data to GBIF, but we had to install our own app for our project areas, which was kind of struggling with the German ones, because we are into data protection a lot. And this is also for hunters, so they don't want to share their data just because we ask them to. And you can see, so we managed for the project areas at least to put the data on GBIF, you see on the top pictures, and create a dashboard. The colleagues from IMBO created an incredible dashboard that really shows us very well the catches, the sightings, and the approaches so far for these two species. And the first take-home message, I repeat it for you at the end, nevertheless, keep it here, please. Inventories for AIS are currently not available in all EU member states, and prospectively, they should be merged transnationally. It's a really urgent topic in my belief. So, coming to our methods and the results so far, we started with one innovative technique, the smart camera traps. INBO led this topic, and yeah, what did we do? We went to waterways, we installed a lot of cameras, we took a lot of pictures, as you can see here, and these pictures were trained by artificial intelligence, trained to identify the species, and it looks then in the beginning, it's trained animal, nothing, human, I don't know, and then it goes like categorization, okay, we get more into detail, and in the end we ended up really with this kind of recognition, being able to identify muskrat and koipu very nicely, and the next step would then be to inform, so you have the database of agouti behind all of these catches, so cameras in the field, information of course still being sampled by people that have to get them back in and then put the pictures on agouti, and agouti has artificial intelligence trained, and then this is the result of all. Second monitoring method is the eDNA. It was mentioned before by the colleague from Belgium. So we are just using it for environmental DNA of muskrat and koipu in waters, just to have a very early method that is able to identify it very early. This is led by the University of Amsterdam, this part of the project. So they developed an auto-sampler. You can go in various methods. You can go along the riverside, stagnant and running water. You can go by foot, as you see. You can take a remote boat. You can go by boat, and you can even use a drone. This all is attached to a field protocol, running the area down to, in the beginning, 1 kilometer pools samples that you can split off. If there is a positive control, you can do it more narrowly and then have a result and really have an early detection. If none of the people in the field have ever seen a muskrat or a koipu at all in before, this will be a positive outcome if there is one. that hasn't been seen. So it is useful, especially with the low population numbers. Take the number here, 212 muskrats per year per square kilometer, so the indices are quite low. That can be achieved. Third method is the DNA mapping. I think everybody of you is aware of DNA mapping and its technique. Just very short, we took the University of, it's not the, right, I indicated the lead project partner on the bottom of the original version, so this might be not the newest. Sorry for that. So this was also led by the University of Amsterdam, the DNA mapping, and the Uni van Waterschappen hosted it. They just took off the tail, did an individual identification, and then were able in a small area to decide, okay, there were clusters outside from different families of koipu or muskrat, in this case muskrat only. And we can now decide, okay, the relationship gives us hints on where they came from, and they made us aware where pathways might exist that we were not aware of before. So this is also a tool that can help, and this is the second take-home message. The early detection can be improved hugely if you by combination of monitoring methods. It's nothing new, but especially these three seem to be adequate to combine for early detection. Coming to the last innovative method, but not being a monitoring one, but a management topic. Also, here the WSRL had the lead of this. What we did is we tried to develop traps that identify their target species. You can see the examples here of different species that are able or were able to enter the live trap. It works with an AI again, so there is a remote sensor. If it detects the movement of an animal that enters at a special distance, it will come into action. It then takes pictures. It combines pictures and memory, artificial memory, and selects, okay, this is the correct target species. I will close then, and then the magnet gets a short impulse of electric impulse, and then it closes the cage. And in the second step, this is a picture of the cage, you are then informed on the right side via telegram right now that there is a catch, and in the best situation, if the internet and everything is perfect, you also get a picture of the animal that was caught. So this is only a prototype. We had catches of both muskrat and koipu in our project areas. We had more than one, so I think about 10 or 12 situations where even raccoons, that, don't get me wrong, we are aware that raccoons are invasive species, but of course this Smart Life Trap prototype, we wanted to first of all only catch koipu and muskrat, so we told them not to catch raccoon, and it worked correctly too. So it went in and out and was not caught. Nevertheless, there have to be adjustments made to use it in the field because of technical problems and because of the prototype. Because as you see this prototype here, there's still wire mesh inside. This would be of no use in real field work. 5 minutes, this is absolutely in my, yeah. I wanted to show you a short video, yeah. Does it work? Yeah, it moves. So this is how it works. The koipu is detected in a minute, not in a minute, shortly. No. So don't worry about the light. So it is not disturbed by it. So, and here comes my third home message. Management must ensure animal welfare standards. Why am I telling you this at this point? Because, of course, as you saw, it closed and it hurt the animal's tail. So this is a problem to address. It's relatively easy. You can enlarge the cage. You can improve the distance. But you have to keep it in mind, and this is really something that I'm also doing research in Hanover. So, as a side effect, as my colleagues told you before, we also dealt with communication. And the public outreach on invasive alien species is still a large issue. On the right, you see a picture of a note that was put on a muskrat, on a professional muskrat catcher's car. It says, if reincarnation exists, I hope you become a muskrat in your next life, animal killer. So this is what we're facing. Of course, we have to keep communication as good as possible. And of course, especially with these new methods, it's all about replication and transfer. You can use these methods, all that I've been talking about, for any vertebrates I can imagine, I think. So, and there are some to come and something to be done. I just repeat the main messages. It's really not the best situation that inventories are currently not available. We have to work on joint databases. As I'm aware of, local authorities are not willing to develop their own or the new one. They want to keep their own. We have to think about merging. And yeah, early detection can be improved by a combination of these methods, and management must ensure animal welfare standards. Joint approaches in this research and management are necessary. That's why we're here. And I also do believe that the project funding is needed for research and management. We talked about this here. So thank you all for your attention. Thanks to all the members of the team. Thank you. You close.
Thank you. Ahora le vamos a dar paso a Santiago, quien nos va a hablar de las medidas urgentes para controlar la propagación de la hierba pampa, cortaderia celoana, en la zona atlántica. Gracias.
¿Es esto? Sí. Para ley. Sí, sí. Y volumen. Sí, a ver si hay volumen. A ver si es Vale, buenas tardes a todos ya. Estamos un poco ya cansados. Voy a ir bastante directo al grano para no aburrir mucho. Yo soy Santiago García, he sido el coordinador del proyecto Life Stop Cortaderia, que ya ha terminado. Se ha desarrollado entre septiembre de 2018 y de 2022. Acabamos de acabar hace 8 meses. ¿Vale? Os vengo a presentar un poco los resultados y especialmente lo que hemos hecho en materia de transferencia, sensibilización, ciencia ciudadana, etcétera. Voy a empezar con un vídeo de difusión que resume un poco el proyecto y así yo luego voy más directo al grano. El vídeo además tiene música muy energética para despertarnos. Así se oye. Pues este era el vídeo. Ha sido un proyecto que, como habéis visto, es evidente. Hemos luchado contra el plumero de la pampa. Imagino que todos le conocéis, cortaderia. Este es nuestro alien, nuestro monstruo. En suelos profundos, como este de la foto, pues ya veis qué cantidad de biomasa produce. Eso tiene 4 o 5 metros de alto arriba. Qué cantidad de plumas. Cada pluma tiene más o menos 100.000 semillas. Una planta media viene a hacer 1 millón, más o menos, ¿vale? Nosotros en el Cantábrico español y en la costa francesa y portuguesa tenemos la suerte y la desgracia de ser el paraíso de las invasoras, porque tenemos un clima con una lluvia durante todo el año bien repartida, no es ni muy frío ni muy cálido, todo lo que plantas crece, ¿vale? Y esta no iba a ser menos. Viene de Sudamérica, tenemos la ventaja de que no tiene reproducción vegetativa, eso nos permite, es su debilidad y nos permite atacarla. Es muy eficaz por semilla, pero no hay reproducción vegetativa, ¿vale? Esa imagen es del entorno de Santander, en Cantabria. Podéis ver las enormes superficies que ocupa. Esto, por un lado, pues es una pena, obviamente, pero por otro lado, ya hay una cierta conciencia social sobre el impacto de esta planta. Ocupa hectáreas en entornos como este, cerca de áreas comerciales, de carreteras, de autovías, de vías de tren, y son además espacios que se transforman en monoespecífico, prácticamente solo plumero, sin espacio para la biodiversidad, solo cortaderia y aparte sin uso público, eso es impenetrable. En cuanto hay un plumeral, enseguida se transforma pues, en un vertedero en la práctica, ¿vale? Lo que sucedió es que la invasión comenzó en los años 40 en Cantabria y en el Cantábrico, estuvo muchos años confinada a esos ambientes, pero poco a poco empezó a ocupar espacios de valor ambiental, sobre todo estos 4 que veis aquí: marismas, acantilados costeros, dunas y campiña, ¿vale? Entonces, esto fue lo que nos provocó hacer este proyecto, porque ya había hábitats de interés comunitario en riesgo por esta especie. Además, en Cantabria, me he pasado una, a ver. Bueno, ¿cómo voy para atrás? Esta. En Cantabria, si os dais cuenta de cómo está geográficamente la región, la cordillera cantábrica es paralela al mar, cerca del mar es donde está el plumero, las mayores poblaciones, pero cada año iba subiendo más, sobre todo ejemplares como este, aislado y disperso, ya a zonas de montaña, ¿vale? Era el otro gran problema junto a los hábitats costeros que hemos visto. Bueno, estos son los datos del proyecto, no me voy a detener mucho, ¿vale? Y aparte de los datos está lo que llamamos el alma, porque yo no pertenezco a una asociación ambiental ni conservacionista de la naturaleza, sino a una del ámbito social y de la discapacidad. Porque el otro gran valor del proyecto es que las personas que han luchado físicamente contra el plumero han sido siempre personas con discapacidad. En total 40 personas, 18 durante 4 años ininterrumpidas y otras 22 de apoyo, ¿vale? Esto no ha sido un proyecto ocupacional, ha sido un proyecto de medio ambiente realizado por personas con discapacidad con un rendimiento totalmente profesional. Han sido entrenadas para ello y, por supuesto, ha sido totalmente eficaz. En Cantabria hay un plan de acción contra el plumero. Esta es la región de Cantabria, para los que no sois de España, en el norte, en la costa norte, con una previsión para no llegar a erradicarlo, sino al menos confinarlo en las zonas donde es más denso, de unos 20 años de trabajo, ¿vale? Entonces, para este LIFE, en estos 4 años, obviamente no nos planteamos la erradicación, sino las zonas prioritarias. Y las zonas prioritarias eran todo lo que habéis pintado de verde al sur, que es lo de la foto, con los ejemplares sobre todo dispersos, porque es una que lo iba poco a poco colonizando hacia la montaña, favorecida también por el cambio climático, la suavización de las temperaturas. Y los espacios verdes pequeños de la costa es la Red Natura 2000 costera. De ahí también era la otra zona prioritaria en el proyecto, ¿vale? Y de ahí lo hemos eliminado. Además de eliminar plumero, hemos hecho acciones de educación, transferencia, sensibilización en toda la costa atlántica, porque el problema es común. Hemos contado con socios, además de los de Cantabria, en Portugal, la Universidad de Coimbra y la Cámara Municipal de Vilanova de Gaia, y hemos hecho acciones también en otras comunidades de Cantabria y de Francia, ¿vale? Bueno, finalmente el resultado del proyecto, que ya no lo voy a contar aquí porque entiendo que aquí hay que centrarse en los temas de transferencia y sensibilización. Hemos eliminado 400 hectáreas de plumero de cortaderia en Cantabria, que se puede considerar un éxito, vamos, y bueno, las metodologías de trabajo, etcétera, pues no las puedo contar aquí ahora, pero bueno, cualquiera me lo pregunta y se lo digo sin problema. Bueno, la primera acción que hemos hecho, que no sé si es estrictamente de transferencia de conocimientos, es redactar una estrategia transnacional. Lo que buscábamos con esto, por supuesto no es normativa, somos entidades privadas, es dinamizar, porque es un problema común a toda la costa, dinamizar con entidades la lucha contra el plumero. Redactamos un documento estratégico dirigido al que toma las decisiones y al que diseña los proyectos de cómo tiene que enfrentarse al plumero, ¿vale? Lo tradujimos a francés, portugués e inglés, está en la web traducido para el que lo quiera leer, y con una serie de criterios para que asumieran las entidades. Estos criterios es la coordinación, ¿vale?, tanto intersectorial como territorial, entre administraciones de diferentes sectores como diferentes niveles administrativos, municipal, regional, nacional, etcétera, porque contra el plumero no va a acabar AMICA, mi asociación, ni el Gobierno de Cantabria, es una lucha de toda la sociedad, ¿vale? Ir siempre de fuera a adentro, de donde hay poco a donde hay mucho. De nada te vale quitar plumero si al lado has dejado otro plumeral. Su capacidad de reproducción por semilla es tan grande que se te va a inundar el año que viene. Entonces, hay siempre seguir un criterio de tierra quemada, casi bélico, ¿no? Cuando hay una guerra, uno no va el primer día al cuartel general del rival, sino que le va rodeando. Pues esto hay que hacer exactamente lo mismo. Si yo voy el primer día a la bahía de Santander, que es donde más hay, y estoy ahí 3 años quitando plumero, cuando me doy la vuelta me ha colonizado toda Cantabria. El criterio es confinar, es el contrario, ir de donde hay poco a donde hay mucho, ¿vale? Siempre que quitas plumero en un sitio, siempre hay que volver al año siguiente, porque es seguro que hay banco de semillas y además puede haber rebrote que no hayas arrancado suficientemente bien. Por lo tanto, no puedes plantearte un proyecto de eliminación de plumero si no vas a volver, porque no vale para nada, porque vas a volver a tener plumero en el plazo de 2 años. Y, muy importante, la restauración. Ya se ha dicho más veces, el plumero en concreto es muy competente en suelos pobres, directamente al sol, etcétera. Entonces, todo lo que sea favorecer el suelo, materia orgánica, plantar vegetación autóctona, se lo estás poniendo difícil. La colaboración ciudadana, ahora vemos cómo. Y la utilización preferente de la eliminación física. A nosotros es lo que mejor nos ha funcionado, es el destoconado y arranque de raíz. El plumero, si le desbrozas, vuelve a rebrotar, obviamente. Si le arrancas de raíz y todo el tocón, ahí no vuelve a nacer. También hemos usado herbicida, sobre todo en situaciones que eran peligrosas para la cuadrilla y no podía estoconar, etcétera. Pero el plumero aguanta muy bien el herbicida, aparte del tema de que, bueno, pues no es muy recomendable usar herbicida en el medio natural, ¿vale? Entonces, siempre recomendamos el destoconado. Si es poco, son ejemplares dispersos por la cuadrilla de operarios. Si es como los de la foto, una enorme superficie monoespecífica, con pala. Pala retroexcavadora, te los arranca de raíz. La ventaja también que los entierra, ¿vale? Porque se genera tanta biomasa que la gestión de restos es un problema muy grave que hay que plantearse también. Vale. Bueno, más cuestiones. A esta estrategia, con estos criterios, se adhirieron 180 entidades de todo el arco atlántico. Los 3 ministerios de Francia, de Portugal, de España, comunidades autónomas, ayuntamientos, asociaciones, cualquier entidad, empresas incluso, etcétera, ¿vale? Nosotros, en el marco de esta estrategia, les hacemos formaciones online, jornadas, ellos nos cuentan sus experiencias, actuamos un poco de asistencia técnica. Además de eso, hemos hecho 4 seminarios, 1 al año, itinerantes en comunidades diferentes y también en Portugal. Seminarios un poco en el que nosotros contamos lo que estamos haciendo y cómo lo quitamos, y en cada sitio nos cuentan sus experiencias, que si han tenido éxito o no, ¿vale? Hemos formado también a más de 1000 personas, sobre todo en sectores que no son de la biodiversidad, sobre todo en sectores, pero cuyo trabajo influye en la gestión del cortaderia. Por ejemplo, periodistas, cómo comunican. Por ejemplo, las canteras, que es un sitio donde hay mucho cortaderia. Por ejemplo, los gestores de carreteras, de trenes, jardineros, ganaderos. En total, cerca de 1000 personas entre España y Portugal. Hemos editado un manual de buenas prácticas, también traducido a francés, portugués e inglés, que también está en la web. Con ya cuestiones prácticas de la persona que se enfrenta a un plumeral, cómo lo tiene que hacer. Si es más conveniente, la pala, la cuadrilla, el herbicida, el arranque, taparle. Bueno, hay varias metodologías que no voy a entrar ahora. Además, hemos activado un grupo de trabajo con técnicos cada 6 meses, también itinerante, que nos hemos ido reuniendo, y hemos creado el kit cortaderia que hemos enviado a 1.200 entidades. Un poco aquí lo que buscábamos era superar el efecto burbuja del que hablaba antes el compañero de EFEverde, que un problema de los live muchas veces es que nos estamos todo el día sensibilizando unos a otros, los que ya estamos sensibilizados, porque somos los que damos OK a que me manden la newsletter, los que seguimos en el Facebook y los que... Entonces, ¿qué hemos hecho en el kit? En el kit hemos metido la estrategia, el manual y material de difusión y se lo hemos enviado por correo postal, y porque no había diligencia, pero por correo postal, en papel, a 1.200 entidades de todo el arco atlántico, de Francia, España y Portugal. Ayuntamientos, asociaciones, todo el mundo, gobiernos regionales, todos tienen en su mesa cómo hacerlo. Si no lo hacen es porque no quieren, pero la información la tienen. Pensamos que no es lo mismo que esté en la web que les llegue. Hay que interpelar directamente a las personas, ¿vale? Un poco en la búsqueda de superar ese efecto burbuja. De cara a ciencia ciudadana, pues hemos hecho una plataforma, aprovechando que el plumero es muy fácilmente reconocible, además está muy presente en ambientes antrópicos, cerca de los pueblos, de las casas, de los caminos, bueno, para que nos identifiquen, y ha funcionado bastante bien. Casi 2.000 puntos de plumero en toda la zona donde es aislado o disperso hemos eliminado a partir de citas que nos han enviado los ciudadanos, ¿vale? Que ha funcionado muy bien también porque nosotros hemos respondido, nos la enviaban y en menos de 10 días no había plumero, donde nos lo habían dicho. Y entonces hay una retroalimentación que ha generado bastante buen funcionamiento. Consecuencia de ello, al sur de esa línea azul prácticamente ya no hay plumero en Cantabria, nada, ni tampoco en la red Natura 2000 costera. Este es un ejemplo de cómo de estos puntos aislados y dispersos que digo, a veces es muy poco rentable en términos de superficie, porque a veces el operario tiene que caminar con la desbrozadora, primero subir en coche y luego a lo mejor caminar media hora para llegar a un plumero que está a 300 metros de nivel más arriba y allí quitarle y bajar y casi ha hecho la jornada laboral para 4 metros cuadrados, mientras que una pala abajo pues te hace en esa jornada 8 hectáreas, o sea que es muy variable. Difusión, hemos hecho mucha difusión, bueno, pues lo que hacemos todos, yo creo, ¿no? La web, más de 70.000 visitas hemos tenido, tenemos cerca de 4.000 seguidores entre Facebook, Twitter e Instagram, muy activos hemos sido en redes, apariciones en prensa, hemos hecho charlas, congresos como este, ponencias, bueno, de todo. Nos ha faltado bailar cha-cha-cha, como dijo nuestro amigo finlandés. Hemos hecho una exposición itinerante por pueblos de Cantabria, que han asistido más de 9.000 personas, la newsletter, más de 700 personas. Hemos estado en escuelas, hemos colocado MUPIs. MUPIs es, ¿sabéis, no? Mobiliario, no sé qué es ahora, mobiliario urbano. Bueno, son las marquesinas. Hemos colocado tanto en Cantabria como en Portugal publicidad para que nos manden avisos de plumero en las marquesinas. Ahora vais a ver fotos. Muchos vídeos en el canal de YouTube. Hemos hecho una inserción en una 3 en el periódico de referencia en Cantabria. Hemos hecho 2,5 millones de azucarillos. Ahora veréis una foto con el plumero. Bueno, camisetas, cuadernos, de todo. ¿Vale? Estos son paneles de la exposición itinerante. Este es uno de los MUPIs. ¿Vale? Ahí avisamos para que nos manden avisos. Como he dicho, ya partíamos de que en Cantabria es un problema ya conocido, que a veces salta a la prensa generalista, porque el plumero, además de la biodiversidad, a veces en verano es muy fácil que se incendie. Hay incendios, además cerca de zonas pobladas, y además tiene cierto potencial alergénico, de provocar alergias. Entonces, muchas veces en la prensa generalista sale que hay un problema con un plumeral, ¿qué tal, no? Entonces, ya partíamos de un poco de dedicación. Hemos hecho un cuadernillo en Kerkus también, asistencia a congresos, bueno, los célebres azucarillos. Hemos repartido 2,5 millones de azucarillos que parecen muchísimos, pero duran muy poco. 2,5 millones de cafés se toman en 2 semanas prácticamente, ¿vale? Y más MUPIs. Bueno, con bastante diseño. Estos son unas pocas fotos antes del resumen de cómo trabaja la cuadrilla en la red Natura 2000 costera. Cuando el plumeral es muy denso, con pala y monoespecífico, claro, porque la pala es poco quirúrgica. Si metes la pala y hay vegetación autóctona en medio, que es lo que queremos conservar, pues no es buen negocio. Si hay vegetación hay que entrar con la cuadrilla. ¿Vale? Aquí unos antes y después. Así estaba este paisaje antes, así después. Para que veáis un poco, ahí se ve un punto blanco por ahí al fondo que casi ni se ve, que resulta ser una casa cuando lo eliminas, una cantera antigua, pues sin un plumero. Esto era un prado ganadero que luego volvió a serlo. ¿Vale? Eso es un dique en las marismas de Santoña y un prado en el Parque Natural de Liengres. Bueno, así hasta 400 hectáreas hemos quitado, ¿vale? En 4 años de trabajo. Vale, los criterios un poco fundamentales que ya he dicho, de fuera a dentro. La restauración ecológica, muy importante. Si lo dejas el suelo, si quitas el plumero y lo dejas tal cual, es muy fácil que vuelva. El seguimiento y control, hay que volver. La responsabilidad con los ciudadanos, lo sienten suyo de esta manera. La gente que ha participado está muy implicada. Y luego alguna reflexión que tengo por aquí, los espacios invadibles. Muchas veces hemos quitado plumero al lado de otras invasoras y realmente el plumero no es la causa del problema, sino es la consecuencia de un espacio que previamente era invadible, ya estaba desequilibrado ecológicamente, ¿no? Entonces, la lucha contra invasoras yo creo que hay que basarla mucho en gestionar la resiliencia de los ecosistemas, en mantenerlos fuertes, sanos y con un equilibrio que no permita esas invasiones, porque muchas veces es que el plumero es la consecuencia del problema, la invasión es la consecuencia, no es la causa, ¿vale? Es un poco un cambio de visión, igual que, pongo al final, la lucha contra invasoras es un poco, o la entiendo yo, como el espejo de la reintroducción de especies. La UICN tiene los criterios de reintroducción para especies que han desaparecido, entre ellos que haya cesado la causa que provocó esa desaparición, porque obviamente no tiene lógica, porque va a volver a desaparecer, ¿no? Pues la lucha contra invasoras es la imagen especular de eso, es decir, ni siquiera te lo tienes que plantear si la causa que hizo que esa invasora estuviera allí sigue actuando. Es decir, hay que pensar un poco más allá de limitarse a quitar plantas, porque si el resto de el proceso sigue funcionando igual, te la volverás a encontrar. Y ya por último, para acabar, yo llevo luchando contra invasoras más de 10 años, tengo 50. Si esto sigue así, está claro que me voy a jubilar quitando invasoras. Y yo creo que hay que intentar, la única solución que veo al problema es un marco legal que sancione a quien tiene invasoras en su terreno. Y que tú recibas una carta, expediente sancionador, te doy 2 años y dentro de 2 años sigue aquí este cortaderia, 3.000 euros. Cada uno asume su responsabilidad y nosotros dejamos de hacer proyectos defensivos, porque esto es lo que son los proyectos de invasoras, defendemos la biodiversidad. En vez de mejorarla, nos estamos conformando con empatar, con mantenerlo como está, pero hay que ir más allá. O sea, pongo ahí, de la misma manera que los efluentes a la atmósfera o al río están en la ley, tú no puedes verter a un río contaminación ni a la atmósfera. Tú no puedes tener una invasora que está contaminando al vecino. Cuando llega su época de floración te está echando semillas yo lo veo exactamente igual que un efluente del agua o a la atmósfera. Y yo es por lo que voy a luchar, es por este marco legal. Esto es inviable, que con los presupuestos públicos podamos con esto. No es obligatorio ser dueño de un terreno. Si no puedes tenerlo en buenas condiciones, pues lo vendes. De la misma manera que en la ciudad te obligan a tener la fachada en buenas condiciones, tú también tendrás que tener un terreno. El propietario muchas veces se defiende, es que yo no lo he plantado, me ha nacido aquí y yo no tengo la culpa. Digo, sí, no es tu culpa, pero pongo ahí, si fuera un roble, si aquí hubiera un roble así de alto, no me dejaría venir aquí con la motosierra y me lo llevo para casa. Me diría, no, es mío, aunque él no lo haya plantado, ¿no? Pues si está en tu terreno, es tuyo, lo hayas plantado o no, o si no, me das el roble, ¿vale? Y si al menos no todos los propietarios, por lo menos los que sí que sacan un rendimiento económico del terreno, pongo ahí explotaciones forestales, que hay mucho, en nuestro caso hay bastante cortadera en eucaliptales, los gestores de carreteras, los de canteras y los de industrias. Yo, de camino a casa, paso todas las tardes por una fábrica cerca de Santander que tiene un plumeral enorme. Y esa fábrica tiene todas las ISOs medioambientales posibles, porque su proceso es correcto. No contamina en su proceso, pero contamina en su terreno. O sea, esto no le veo mucha lógica. Y esto es todo.
Muchas gracias. Bueno, según el programa teníamos una presentación ahora, pero también tenemos el café ahora. Y el café es, no sé si es patrimonio de la humanidad, pero es necesario para seguir vivo. Así que, por favor, Pietro, ¿está Pietro? Pietro, ¿tú vas a dar la presentación luego? Pero ahí, tú eres el que da la presentación. You are the one that it's going to do the presentation, right? Can we do it after the coffee, please?
Prefiere ahora. Él prefiere ahora.
You prefer now? Ah, ok. ¿Está bien si lo hacemos ahora? Perfecto, ok. Ok, yeah. We are going to do now because you don't like coffee. Okay. Bueno, vamos entonces a la presentación de Pietro. Tal y como estaba en programa, nos va a hablar sobre Live Predator, prevenir, detectar y combatir la propagación de Silurus glanis en los lagos del sur de Europa para proteger la biodiversidad.
Okay, so good afternoon and hello to everybody again. So the project Live Predator started in September, last September, and is focused on this fish, that fish, okay, catfish, European catfish. Okay, what the European catfish is a giant freshwater fish. It's the largest freshwater fish in Europe. You can imagine it can grow up to let's say 200 or more kilograms and up to 3 meters of length. So it's not that small. And in the reason of its size is one of the most appreciated fish for anglers in Europe, especially in Southern Europe. In Southern Europe is invasive, so it's no native in Southern Europe, and it was introduced in the last 50 years in many lakes and rivers, not only in Italy but also in Spain, Portugal, France, and also Slovenia and Croatia. So as you can see here, its native distribution is from Eastern Europe, but it was introduced in other, especially in South European countries, and also in China for aquaculture. But the main vehicle for its spread at present is still let's say recreational fishing, because its value for this activity, okay? So why is an invasive species? First of all, because it has a rapid growth, lack of natural predator. You can imagine a fish of 1 meter or more of length, so it's impossible to, or not impossible, but with difficulty it can be predated by other animal. It's highly prolific, so it can spawn up to 30,000 eggs per kilo. So you can imagine a fish of 100 kilos, how many eggs can release in the environment. And also it does parental cares. So it defends the nest where it spawns the eggs. So it's very, let's say during reproduction, it has a very aggressive behavior in regard to the other animals and also human. It has a wide ecological tolerance, now it's better, and also is highly adaptable in regard of feeding strategies and prey. So it does not eat only fish, it likes a lot, let's say birds, aquatic birds, not humans, at least until now, but I mean, it's very, very flexible. And for all this reason, it was able to establish self-sustaining population in many South European countries, okay? So what we are focusing on in this project is to find, let's say, a multiple strategies that able to prevent, detect, and combat the further spread of this species, and try to control its population in lakes, because the project is focused on lakes that are already inhabited by this top predator. So the consortium is composed by 6 partners. So 4 are from Italy, 1 is from Portugal, Experiencias, and another one is for Czech Republic. Why from Czech Republic? Because it's a good place used for comparison. So the catfish is native in Czech Republic. So we can compare population from Czech Republic and lakes and different environmental conditions from in Czech Republic, Czech lakes in comparison to the lakes of Italy and reservoirs in Portugal. The project has also 5 co-financiers. So the budget of the project is not so big. It's 2 million, almost 3 million euros, but it's not so small as well. So the project is focused only on lakes. So we try to, let's say, narrow a little bit the window of activity. And why lakes? Because especially small lakes are a kind of, let's say, islands. So in our first idea is to try to use small lakes as a model to demonstrate that it's possible to combat the spread, and also we hope to eradicate the presence of the catfish in that kind of environments. So we will focus in the whole project on 23 lakes in Italy, 25 reservoirs in Portugal, and 2 reservoirs in Czech Republic. The activity of eradication of control of catfish will not be carried on all lakes, because some lakes and reservoirs will be used as a reference. So we will try to compare lakes where the activity will be done in terms of capture the catfish and so on, and lakes where this activity will be not carried on. So the first objective of the project is, first of all, to prevent further introduction. And we would like to, let's say, to do a strong activity on anglers, because they are the first vehicle of introduction. So we will focus on anglers mainly, and also all the activity of, let's say, awareness and raising events will be dedicated also to children. So this will be the first the most important categories that we will focus on during the project, okay? So first of all, to convince anglers, fishermen, that the catfish is a trophy fish, but being no native and being an apex predator will be very dangerous for native species and in general biodiversity in South Mediterranean lakes. And of course children, because they are the future, so they are the new propagule of a new kind of invasion, so will be very important. So object 2 is develop an early detection and warning system. It will be based on 2 different activities and, let's say, methods, approaches. First of all, develop on the, let's say, the neighboring areas around each lake these so-called warning teams. So it's a kind of involvement on local citizen that will be informed, teach about the, just the knowledge of the catfish, just to say, if you see some fish that look like a catfish in your lake, please say to the authorities and so on. And the other approach will be developed in the project is will be based on environmental DNA. So to find an assay that can be applied to detect the presence of the catfish in those lakes where the catfish apparently is not still present. So in for instance, in Italy, northern Italy, catfish is present in, let's say, 40% of lakes, 50% of lakes. So we would like to focus on the other 50% of lakes, just to say, okay, try to test this method to, to find if it's possible to be applied in that lakes, and also to be transferred to environmental agency and so on. So the third objective is to try to control efficiently the established population or reduce the abundance of the catfish in some specific type of lake. So when the invasion curve is at the top, of course the invasion cannot be stopped at all, but in small places it's possible to develop good methods, or we hope that it's possible to develop good methods and approaches to take the catfish out. In large lakes, and our, let's say, aim is to reduce the population of catfish, for instance, in 5 Natura 2000 lakes in Italy by at least 90%. So it's a very high, let's say, objective in terms of probability of realization. Okay, but we think that in small lakes can be done. In large lakes, instead, we will focus on Lake Maggiore, that is close to our institute. The catfish is present, let's say, since 1995, something like this. So now the population is still increasing. So what we would like to do is to focus on control this population, at least to stabilize it or decrease a little bit. So in this regard, we will focus on the collaboration of commercial fishermen. There is a commercial fisheries in the lake. So in these large ecosystems, the only way to combat the spread or control these species is to use a huge effort that can be done only by commercial fishermen. So we cannot imagine, I don't know, electrofishing or other kind of activities for a long time. So in large places, we would like to focus on the help of commercial fishermen. And of course, we would like to, we will focus also on Portuguese reservoirs. And as you can see, we suggested as objective this kind of percentage reduction. So what we will try to develop in the project as well is a strategy to measure, that is requested by LIFE, but to measure the impact of this kind of activities of eradication or control. And we will try different approaches. First of all, we will apply, let's say, standard sampling of the fish community before and after these activities. We will done this activity in lakes where the catfish will be taken out, but also in lakes where the catfish is not present, or where the catfish is present but no activities will be done. So three different comparisons, okay? 2 different comparisons. And also we would like to understand the impact of eradication or control activity on the food web by using stable isotopes. So the question is to how these activities impact on the, let's say, on the functionality of the ecosystem. And also we will focus on the whole biodiversity of the lake, using DNA metabarcoding. So we will look at the whole eukaryotic community in the lakes, comparison different sites, and of course, in the light of the Water Framework Directive, we will focus on the so-called ecological status of the lakes that will be measured by the national indexes used for the Water Framework Directive. And last but not least, the sustainability and the replication and exploitation of the results. So during the project, we will try to develop guidelines and protocols that will related to the catfish capture techniques and the best capture techniques that can be transferred to, other institutions, parks, protected areas, and so on, so they can be used and useful. Also, we would like to implement a working group. It is called Southern European Management Group, but the aim of this group will be to exchange experience in the management of the catfish. So we had already a contact from France and from, I think, from Spain, because France and Spain are not in the project, so partners are not from Spain and France, but we aim to build this kind of network. Of course, we would like to transfer the knowledge that we will get in regard to eDNA techniques, to transfer to, of course, university, environmental agencies, and other, for instance, private companies. And specific activities will be done in regard to the use of catfish as food, in terms of use of bycatch that is common in lakes where the catfish is present and where the commercial fishery is also present. They are not able to use this biomass, more or less. So because it's a new species, so people do not like it, so they throw in the lake again every catfish they catch. So one of the aim of the project is to try to develop at very local scale a kind of circular economy based on the bycatch of the catfish, and also try to stimulate the commercial fishermen to use the catfish as food to improve the fishing pressure of the species in large lakes. So these are mostly let's say, the different line that we will apply for sustainability, replication, and exploitation. But the question, I think, if all of us deal with invasive species, can be an invasive species, and could be a good point for discussion at the coffee, can be an invasive species a resource, so can be valuable in this term or not. As you can see here, just I show you something that is already on the web in Italy. So from Michelin-rated chef to local markets, in some case the catfish is already sold. So the problem is, can be good to improve the consumption by, selling it as a resource, or the method that should pass through people is just, no, the catfish is an invasive species, is bad, so cannot be used as food, just use it for other, fertilizer everywhere. So we had a discussion during the project submission, and the project was submitted twice. So the first year we had a discussion, preliminary discussion with some advisor on this part, and also during the proposal, discussion after, I finished, we discussed about this point. So there are two views in the world of invasive species manager, and so can be an invasive species research or not. In our case, the opinion is that we can try to develop a very limited circular economy that use the bycatch or fish that come from eradication activity for providing food, and we will focus on a social cooperative very local social cooperative that will use the catfish for this kind of food production. So that's it. Thanks.
Gracias. ¿Alguna pregunta rápida? Sí. Por favor, el micrófono para Kevin. The microphone for you. Okay.
Frederica, actually, just a very quick question, and sorry about this, but you mentioned that you caught raccoons in your traps, but then released them. You didn't? Ah, I misunderstood. I withdraw my question.
So we didn't catch them because the intention was the trap didn't close. Huh? So they went inside and they went outside safely. Yes. Yeah. Just putting this correct.
Ok, bueno, importante aclarar esos malentendidos. Bien, ¿alguna otra pregunta antes de ir al café? Ok, café, por favor.
n'empêche, je crois qu'on aurait ramené le double de guide parfait. Ouais. C'est parti en même pas en une heure. Tout était parti sur toujours le dernier que les gens avaient, et puis après. C'est la poule. Oui, tout à fait. Oui. Ah, c'est vrai que les guides de reconnaissance, moi aussi j'en ai compris. C'est bien pour montrer ce qu'on fait, parce que c'est pas. Les Anglais, en même temps, c'est ce que mal les Anglais.
Ok, vamos a continuar con las presentaciones de la tarde. Continuamos con la temática 5 de la exploratoria del manejo. Continuamos con Live Riparias, que va a ser presentado por Arnaud y Sonia. Nos presentarán cómo llegar a una acción integrada y rápida en respuesta a las especies exóticas invasoras en Bélgica. Gracias.
So good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for staying with us till this almost late afternoon. So I'm Sonia van der Hoeven. I work for the Belgian Biodiversity Platform, and we will make a kind of a duo to present to our Belgium live project, which is Riparias. Riparias stands for Reaching Integrated and Prompt Action in Response to Invasive Alien Species. And I introduce you my colleague, Arnaud Monti. Arnaud works for Université of Liège, Jean-Blou Agrobiotech. So one more project on invasive alien species, you may say, but actually what we would like really to let you understand is the reason why we have decided to develop this Live Riparias project. So in Belgium, there is quite a long history already to manage invasive alien species by public authorities and by NGOs. But so far, it was done in an ad hoc way, I would say, without real organization coherence, sometimes with success, sometimes no, sometimes we actually really don't know. So we realized to some point that there was a critical need to underpin invasive alien species management with something which is coherent, replicable, and especially what we really wanted to have is a transparent workflow in support of decision making. So at one point, Belgian authorities have decided to collaborate and to pool their resources together with the funding of the EU to optimize the management of invasive species. And so it brings them to develop this project, which was aimed to develop an innovative evidence-based workflow for IAS management decision-making. But the most important thing is what we wanted to achieve is to optimize this management. And we wanted to test that in a pilot area. So what we deem really important is in this project is the interdisciplinary cooperation between the practitioner, the general public, and the policymakers. But when I say interdisciplinary cooperation, we actually go a little bit further, because what we really want to do and to achieve is co-creation of the decision and the management thereof. So when I say Belgium authorities, based on the discussion that happened yesterday in my group, I realized that we were quite lucky because the competent authorities are not only paying for the project, but they are active members, active partners. So we have all Belgian competent authorities in charge of invasive alien species management, at least the regional ones. We have the practitioners, being NGOs and river managers, and we have three entities which provide the technical support. It's Jean-Blou Agrobiotech, the Belgian Biodiversity Platform, and INBOD, so the Institute for Nature and Forests in Flanders. So what are the main objectives of this project? The first very important objective is that we would really like to improve the data flow from the existing early warning schemes that exist in Belgium. There are already a few, either hosted by the NGOs or actually by the public authorities. And we wanted to improve this data flow from the early warning system up to the managers, and it was done by ensuring interoperability and enhancing the existing surveillance. So that was the first very important objective. Second one, another important to me, I would say, is the development of guidelines and most importantly, objective criteria for prioritizing the management. So we would like to provide managers support in deciding which are the most important species, which are the most important area to manage, and help them in deciding which are the most appropriate technique. So we have two different approaches. For the emerging species, we try to reach rapid eradication, while for more widespread species, it depends on the species. Either we try to contain the populations in core areas, or we try to maintain some pest-free areas. So that's for the second objective. The third objective is that we try to improve the data flow now from management actions up to the policymakers. So we really insist on the monitoring, and we try to evaluate the efficiency of the management. This is really important because we have to report on how efficient we are in achieving the obligation pursuant to the regulation. And the last objective, this is exactly the reason why we are here today, is that we want to promote the replication of this evidence-based workflow in Europe and improve the transfer of experience regarding the best management practices.
Okay, so as you see, it's a quite ambitious and pilot project. So if we plan to enlarge it in the future, the first step was to use it in a pilot area. So we choose 3 river basins which were covering the 3 regions of Belgium, because the different regions have different institutions working around rivers, so the organigrams, the structure is a bit different. So it was interesting to face this challenge. So there are the Mark, the Zenne, and the Dale rivers, and the number of species we target is quite large, because we included all the plants and crayfish species from the EU list, but we also have an alert list, so species that are considered emergent in our country based on risk assessment and presence in the market. So there are species that are present but in very few populations. So here's a representation of the workflow, the evidence workflow. It might be clearer with a drawing. So the idea is to have like a loop with citizens, stakeholders, professionals in the field getting more active in surveillance. These data are immediately available, on real time available to make decisions, so they are included in the decision support tool, which is used to co-construct the river basin management plan, so really the priority in terms of species, in terms of area where the management will take place, and then only the managers are sent in the field to really do the management where it is most appropriate. And you see this 5, the number 5 is that this idea that the management itself is recorded in the system and can help further for the cycle in the loop to adapt also the prioritization based on the results of the management. So there's really this iterative idea. Some results so far, so give the floor to Sonia.
So we have a set of preliminary actions. The first of it is an integrated common early warning system. As I told you, there were already some existing initiatives in Belgium, but the idea was really to merge not the system, but rather to join all the data in a common tool to allow the email notification to potential users. So based on another project that we developed in the past, which was called Trias, and developing a data workflow, so we used the same approach, using GBIF as a central hub for gathering and pooling all the data. All the system is based on open source, so the reason why we do that is exactly for you, if you are interested and if you want to develop it for your own country, your own area of interest. Everything is available. You can just let us know and we can provide you with all the codes and so on to develop such an approach. So that's the first tool, the early warning system. The second very important tool is the decision support tool itself. So as I told earlier, it allows the prioritization of species. So if you want to know in your area of concern what are the species that you should work on first, it helps you to decide. If you are interested to know where to act for a certain species, what are the priority areas, you can also use the system. And if you want to know which techniques is the most appropriate, the system also allows it. So it's, as you see here on the picture, there are two pictures because you can play between those two screens. You have specially explicit data. So actually, basically, it's the occurrences for the species of interest with a set of additional layers, such as Natura 2000 areas or the Korean land cover. So you are able to switch on or switch off all those layers. And you have a questionnaire, which is indicated here below, a little bit like for the risk assessment. If you are familiar with this kind of approach, you are asked to provide an answer to a set of questions, and with each answer there is a score associated, and at the end you have a score for each of the species or for each of the area, and it helps you prioritizing the species or the area at the very end. So it's a bit of a mix between those two tools.
Some words now about communication, because it is also an important aspect of the project, with three main target audience that you can maybe refer in the drawing before. First of all, we want to engage citizens in surveillance. We want as much people as possible in the field collecting data to have real-time map of each species to make a sound decision. To do this, we developed identification material. So there is a guide, there are ID sheets, brochures, and so on. We also realized BioBlitz and participate to different events. We try to have a Facebook and Twitter community as well. So the idea is really to make like a snowball of a community that would help us in the field. So that's one target audience. Another very important target audience for us is more technical. It is represented by the professional, the stakeholders, also the local decision makers, because it's really important that they can use the best practices when they play with the decision tool. They can choose the species, decide, but also the method. So we also develop best management practice guides. The one for crayfish is already available. There were some in the other room. The one for plants, it's much bigger. It's coming soon, so it's being finalized for the moment. And these guides are already used and will be used more in the future to make training. So we want to really train the professionals in terms of identification and management practice, prevention, management itself, eradication, or control. So the idea is really to have a community of trained professionals that are more efficient in the field. But we don't only provide information to those people, we also try to get information from them. For instance, here there are two clear examples. On the right, on the left first maybe, you have the prioritization workshop. So that was the first time we played with the decision support tool, and we played with them in a room, and they answered the questions, and we discussed about the results of the tool, and is it sound prioritization, does it make sense, and so on. There were some feedbacks from them, so it helped having strategies that are easily acceptable for everyone. And there was also a workshop on the dedicated action. Some of you were there in this workshop in ICAIS. It was about the evaluation of ecosystem service change due to management. It's also part of the decision making in terms of what method to be used. And the last target audience, it's you. It's the exchanging at EU level. So we participate to different conference in terms of scientific exchange, but we also, like Sonia said, want to spread the tool to enlarge it especially. So there is a pilot area now. We would like to have it enlarged to the whole Belgian territory and then to be spread to other member states. Of course, the layers, the maps and so on are not exactly the same, but the idea is that everything is open source, so you can adapt easily to whichever situation. And there is already a work in progress with Luxembourg, who is already trying to adapt the tool. So, thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Vamos ahora a la última presentación de hoy día, previamente a una mesa redonda que vamos a tener, el proyecto Interreg, a cargo de Allen, sobre la preservación de los hábitats de la cuenca del río Sava mediante la gestión transnacional de las especies exóticas invasoras.
Hello everyone, it's great to be here with you, with the big family combating invasive species. So I will present you a project from Danube Transnational Program, SAVATA is acronym standing for the preservation of the Sava River Basin habitats through transnational management of invasive alien species. I am working at Institute for Nature Conservation of Vojvodina province in Serbia, which is actually situated in the Pannonian biogeographical region, and we are a public institution. So first about, it's not working?
It's not working. No, I mean, it was working now.
Okay.
Okay.
So first something about the Sava River. So its length is almost 1,000 kilometers. It is the biggest Danube river tributary by the water quantity, and we know that the quantity of the water and the strength is also good for transition of the invasive species, particularly the seeds. The Sava River is connecting several states from Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, and Serbia, covering the catchment area of almost 100,000 square kilometers. Two of those countries are in member states, and Bosnia and Herzegovina and Serbia are not. And also they are connecting the high mountains with the lowlands in the Pannonian Basin, connecting three biogeographical regions, Alpine, Continental, and the Pannonian. And because they are very close to the Adriatic Sea, it's also reaching the Mediterranean. So I would directly go to the target invasive species because we have focused, been representing the association of the organizations that are engaged in protected area management, named Sava Parks. So it is a network organization of 22 different governmental and non-governmental organizations that are managing protected area in the Sava River Basin. We are established by the German organization Euronature, who was the lead partner in this project. Implementing period was from May 2018 until May 2021. And the target is that we are focused our pilot areas on eradication. Those species were Ailanthus altissima, Acernegonda, Amorphophoticosa, Sclepia syriaca, Echinocystis lobata, Impacius glandulifera, Rhenotria bohemica, Solidalgo gigantea. So the overall project objective was improving the transnational Sava River ecological corridor, its functionality by reducing habitat fragmentation, by efficient invasive species management. Actually, we wanted, our target was to improve cross-sectoral cooperation. We know it's essential for the efficient measures. To have a common approach, regardless are we a member or a non-member state, and to have a policy impact. We know that rivers are particularly in the lowland areas and the cultural landscapes the most important ecological corridors. So we have developed what we named Invasive Alien Species Management Toolkit, which is tailored for the protected areas and land users on our local levels. So this is a complex output. We started from the listing priority species in the Sava River Basin. We have listed total 32 vascular plants because we have focused on the vascular plants. Then we have developed pilot template for the planning, eradication actions, gap analysis, training programs, communication strategy, and roadmap. We have started from the protocol for mapping and monitoring on invasive species with several methods so that a partner can decide on the method depending on how large the area is and how time they have and how much resources they can use for this. We made a review of best management practices in eradication of the target species. Then we made planning instructions for planning pilots and how to transfer the knowledge. We made a risk assessment according to your allegation for the 6 target species. Then we have performed a land use study analyzing which practices are enhancing and which are actually preventing the spread of invasive species. Based on this, we have developed cross-sectoral guidelines for forestry, water management, etc. We have developed a joint database of invasive species, and altogether altogether it is the framework. Actually, it is a stepwise approach from recognizing problem to collaborative management. So we have started from the land use analysis in the Sava River Basin to reveal where are the gaps and the synergies between different sectors. And we have, together with our partners, revealed that these are agriculture, forestry, water management, tourism, and other, working different operations such as soil movement, excavation, which are all related to the spread of invasive species. And we used a multilingual Google survey, which was implemented by the partners. And we used different questions, also sometimes using triangulation, because people do not want to be recognized as someone who are doing something wrong. Actually, we were looking to see what is the knowledge of the land managers about invasive species. Do they consider invasive species in their management plans, particularly forestry, agriculture, and water management? And how their land management activities affects invasive species. Based on that, we have developed cross-sectoral guidelines for efficient management on invasive species in the Sava River Basin. And now about the pilots. We have implemented 7 pilot actions in the invasive species control in 4 countries, 2 are member states, 2 are candidate countries. So we have only 3 years. It was a project on 3 years, and the budget was about 2 million euros. And the project started in the summer 2018, and we realized that it is not enough time to have complete results for some species such as rhinotria, because it is very persistent species. But we tried to test different already known methods in our policies, because we are 4 countries, only one have a national list of invasive species, and only a few of those species recognized to destroy the structure and functionality of the target ecosystems, of the ecosystems in protected areas, are on the EU list. So this is just an overview. You have a complete report with all species, with habitats, with time, how much they actually planned to spend the money, how much they really spent for the eradication. This is just an overview. So we used for the morpho-grinding or milling and grazing, then wiping or painting with the herbicides for the Asclepias, then pulling out for the Ailanthus, cutting and injecting herbicides for Rhinotria, cutting and covering also for the same species, and marsh rejuvenation exactly digging out the area for the amorpha, because then it is in the pessimum for that species. So I wouldn't go about those methods. It's most important, what we have revealed are different issues. So it wasn't only about testing the methods, it was testing the national policies, because we are 4 countries having completely different policies in invasive species, particularly the implementation on the EU regulation on the field. We have all signed the CBD and Article 8 considering the invasive species, but its implementation is ongoing. So one of the realized issues was conflict in management objectives. This is a corn crake, Crex. This is Annex 1 bird species for the bird directive, and the site was in Croatia. Actually, what happened? It is the biggest area, floodplain area protected in Croatia, about 50,000 hectares, and about 5,000 hectares was registered to be habitat of the corn crake, but completely overgrown in the Amorpha fruticosa. But due to the fact that it was registered, according to the national rules, removing of the invasive plant was not allowed before the 15th August. And we know for the plant physiology that it is effective only if we do it before the plant produces seed, of course. So it was one of the revealed problems. So different management objectives. What is the priority? Corn crake to protect the habitat for the species, and actually it is not functional because it is nesting on the meadows, on the wetland meadows, or to omit that one nesting season and to provide suitability of the habitat for the next seasons. Then for the another one example, it was in Slovenia. What happened? 50 years ago, there were big families having large meadows within one family. But later, their children have moved to the cities, and actually now we have several owners on one small parcel, and the protected area manager could not issue the approval of all landowners to implement eradication activity. So what happened? The target species was Impatiens glandulifera, so they eradicated the species in all areas, but on small, they couldn't enter the area, so we could use only containment of the species. Another one example was the public procurements. You know, it's very, very demanding, particularly in the non-EU countries, because we are obliged by the Interreg Prague procedure, and what actually happened that due to several issues, we completely lost the first season and almost the second season of the eradication methods implementation. Then we have also the imprecise terms of reference for the contracting service about the soil excavation, where it should be deposited and how the restoration should go on. And it resulted that actually protected area manager had to invest own 70,000 euros to put the infested soil with the seeds and other propagals on the proper place. Well, they learned on their mistake, but it was very costly. Then in Bosnia, we have one marsh, completely overgrown invasive species, shared between 2 entities, the Bosnian Federation and the Republic of Srpska, and one of those 2 said, we don't want restoration, so they couldn't implement on the total area, which is, of course, not effective. And one of the most interesting examples is Reinotria, in Una National Park. Una River is tributary of the Sava River. Target species was the Reinotria. We wanted to test several methods, okay? And we planned to, after mechanical removal, to put the goats on there according to experience from other countries, but the goats didn't want to eat the Reinotria, not even after 2 days being tied to the area. So my colleagues said that these goats are probably prima donnas in the goat world, But actually we had to change the method, and so we used covering with the nylon sheets. So altogether, we concluded that you could never forget about local circumstances and the policies, because they can affect the same method in different countries and also in the same country depending in which area you are working on the administration level. We have also implemented two pilot research looking for the synergies with the land users, because if you want to get foresters and others, we have to step into their shoes. We made a comparative analysis of 2 clusters of oak and poplar forest habitats infested by invasive species and where the controlled by grazing. It was the poplar and oak, of course. Target species was amorpha. We used the cattle and the pig grazing, and what we have revealed that actually timber increment is much higher where there is implemented the grazing. These are the lowland habitats, there is no erosion. So this is tree-coring method. And also about our collaboration with the NGOs, which are working on Chiroptera, bird species protection. What is happening? We know that the grazing animals are the engineered species, which are by trampling, wallowing, grazing, they are maintaining and making diversity of the habitats. Actually, they are making corridors in the forestry and in that way enabling many other species to find their microhabitats, and one of those is the bird species. The blue line represents here activity of the areas which was grazed and where the pig pennage was implemented. So in total, about the capacity building, we have organized several study visits in Hungary, looking for different methods and how efficient they were. We have organized training for stakeholders, developing communication skills about project planning also. We have organized transnational workshops with experts from different continents and their experience in eradicating on the target species. And of course, training for the utilization of the strategic framework. I said also for the protocol for monitoring and the 4 methods that actually can be chosen according to the species and the resources. And this is important. This is a field manual from the yes, this is a field manual for mapping the species, and actually we have considered to be useful to have 2 options. For the citizen science, this is the left one, and for the expert, the right one. Nothing can be seen here, but what is the point? Actually, we have considered not only the presence of the invasive species, but is it herbaceous layer, the bush layer, or the tree layer? Why is it important? So if it is a tree layer, then forest management authorities have to give you approval to remove the invasive species, because it is a timber, it is a valuable resource for the government. And on the other sheet for the expert, there is habitat type. Is there a strictly protected species? Is it priority habitat type? And is there any pathway? So in using all this information, protected area manager can easily do prioritizing the species and the areas of the eradication. With help of our friends from Joint Research Center, we have developed special catalog only for the Sava River Basin, translated to 4 languages with some simplified, of course, entries, but it is very usable because we have the species which have been considered the most important for the Sava River Basin. Also, the joint pilot report with transferability plan, you can find it on the project site. There is a template, stepwise planning of the eradication and how to communicate with different stakeholders and how to share the project results. Also, a training course manual. It is actually training the trainers because this is developed for the 22 organization of the SAVA parks. So they are keep handling and working with different stakeholders from the schools, so 3 levels, from the school people, for the land managers, and for the government, of course. We have developed also a communication strategy and the SAVA Parks roadmap. And we have also found out that selecting project catchword is very important, because in the first year, our catchword, La Parola, was invasive species are among us. Then what happened? Migrant crisis. And in that moment, Ministry of Foreign Affairs called us and asked us directly, what are you pointing to? So we have to change the project promotional material and catchword to Beauty of the Beast, which actually proved to be much more effective. We have developed several, so each pilot area have developed own promotional film. We have one that sum up film reflecting all pilot actions in the project area. And this is the SAVA Parks members representing organizations. So we strongly believe that we will find out enough strength to make a follow-up and to fully implement it, all the outputs that we have jointly produced. Thank you.
Ok, gracias. Bueno, hemos terminado las presentaciones. Antes de pasar a la mesa redonda, ¿alguna pregunta para alguno de los ponentes? Ok, perfecto. Bueno, la mesa redonda a continuación va a ser moderada por el compañero Kevin. Y como participantes tenemos a Elena Tricarico, Pedro Anastasio y Ana Novoa. La temática de la mesa redonda es ¿cuál es la mejor manera de transferir experiencias y enseñanzas entre los proyectos LIFE y otro tipo de proyectos relacionados a las especies exóticas invasoras en Europa? Gracias.
Half an hour. Okay. Right, this is the last... Bye, everybody. This is the last session, guys. We clearly have the diehards left in the room, so this is going to be a half-hour session. So, firstly, I'm just going to introduce what we're going to be doing, and then I will introduce the fantastic panel that we have here with us. So, we all know that invasive alien species are a major threat to Europe's biodiversity. If we are going to meet the Global Biodiversity Framework target on invasive species, if we're going to effectively implement the EU Invasive Species Regulation, and if we are going to effectively meet the target in Europe's Global Biodiversity Framework on reducing threats to native species, as wonderful as LIFE projects are, they're not going to be able to do it by themselves. We really need to scale up action. We need to really get the management authorities within countries to really learn from LIFE projects, adopt, fund and scale up the action. Okay? But to do that, management authorities and others are going to need easy access to the information on the effectiveness of measures, the failures, the costs, the side effects, how to collaborate, all the stuff that LIFE projects are great at. Okay? But how can we improve that knowledge transfer? How can we really make sure that the knowledge and the experience and the results and the failures, and I know we discussed this previously, just as important, how can we make sure that we can communicate that information effectively? So we have a panel here. I've got a few questions that I'm going to get the panel to answer, and then we'll open it up to the room to get your feedback too. We have Elena Tricarico from the University of Florence, Pedro Anastasio from the University of Evora, and we've got Anna Novoa from the Institute of Botany of the Czech Academy of Science. Thank you very much. So one area, and this is actually something that Riccardo Scalera mentioned yesterday, was on the reporting from LIFE projects. Is there something that we can do for the reporting of LIFE projects? Can it be improved to support that knowledge transfer? So I don't know who'd like to go first, if anyone's got any thoughts on life project reporting, if you think it can be improved. Do you think the way that it is currently done supports knowledge transfer?
Okay, I can break the ice. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, you come up here, please. Oh, okay. We have a mic. We need a microphone then. We'll get a microphone. We'll get a microphone. Gives you time to think. Yeah, sure. That's a little bit easier done. Perfect. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you.
Is it not working?
It's working?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I agree. That's all. Thank you. Okay. No. I'm joking. Yeah, I totally agree, because when we look for the layman report, they are very brief. I mean, they are required by the Commission at the end of the project, but they are very broad, and you don't find the information you need. For example, for how long that activity, that specific activity, the effect, the impact, the cost, because you have the global picture of the projects, but you are interested in more details.
Yeah.
So I think we should try to develop a simple form to so we can do the same with alien species, with invasive alien species, in a very simple format and very simple language, also for the stakeholders and policymakers. So they usually produce not a brochure, a book, but free access, and you can consult, and you can find all the interesting information, like which kind of technique, in which type of habitat you can apply, the effectiveness, probable, the cost, the non-target effects, and such kind of information we are looking for. So.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Thank you, Anna.
Okay. What I think is when we are talking about knowledge transfer, it's and communication, these are not exactly the same thing. So if we want to pass the information to all the public, it's one thing. If we want to pass it to technicians, it's different. When we produce reports, and all of us do that, I think that very seldom these reports are widely read. Most of them, they are available, but only people that have that specific problem will look at them in detail. So we probably have to find better ways to advertise these reports, and also to pass the relevant information within these reports. I don't know how this happens. It certainly will not be using the traditional media, because this is very targeted information if it is for technicians. So we have to use things like maybe social media and some networks that are already working, in which we can advertise that this information is available, and they can access it freely somehow. One way to do this, condensed information, would be to produce something like videos containing like a summary of the information within this. And I think several of the live projects try to do this, although most of these videos are for a wider audience and not really very technical videos. You can only usually find these type of videos if you have some kind of like a massive open online course in which you can go to a specific type of information and then find out how to do something.
I don't have experience with live projects. I have never worked on one, but I do have experience with knowledge transfer to stakeholders. And I don't know if a report is like just having a report for every live project is the right way, because if someone is going to do a similar management in a different part of Europe, I don't know if that person is going to, or that manager is going to look, maybe yes, but maybe not to each single one of the reports. And at least with plans, with some groups, what we have seen is that what works really well is to have, is like working groups. So for example, we have a global working group for cactus, and we have a global working group for grasses, and we have a global working group for trees. Those are the three that I'm involved with, so it's the only ones that I know of. But it works really well because we don't get in contact that often, but at least once every 5 years or 10 years, we put together all the information. So for example, for cactus, we have a database with all the biocontrol agents that work for each of the species, all the herbicides that have been used in each of the countries for each of the species, which ones work, which ones not, which ones are allowed to be used, which ones not. And what works is like when someone is going to manage cactus in some part of the world, they look in Google and they find the website, and then they have the list of all the people that work with those species, the contact, the email or whatever, so they can contact. And it works really well. We get managers all the time contacting us. So maybe just having the information of what works and what not in a report, maybe it's better to just put it all together, because someone in Chile is going to have the same problem than in Europe, and we also can learn from each other. So maybe something like that could work better, like working grouping freshwater fishes or crayfish or things like that. I don't know.
Thank you.
Yeah, idea. Yeah, it's true. When I was mentioning such kind of piece of work, it was just to summarize all the experiences from the different parts of the world, because you are right. There is a similar document produced by the UCN in France. They produced this technical guide, not technical, yeah, but the different experiences they had, and it's quite useful because they report like the technique, the area, the cost, and all the factors, and they are available. And it's quite, I commonly consult it. Yeah. But anyway, yes, and we have to spread in a different way because we are aware, and the problem is that when you have to write the report for the life, it's true that it's available, but not always the entire report, and it's always maybe in the local language, so people will not consult.
True. Yeah, I mean, I think this is something that we've discussed within ISN and with other people too, would be if it would be beneficial to have a database of management actions, where you have a standardized format coming from the, for example, from the Life Project reports and other projects. And if you could just have a database that uses standard classification schemes, results, and then anybody can go and what species, management actions, and something simple. And that's something that we thought might be quite a useful tool to support that decision or knowledge transfer, maybe to certain stakeholder groups, not to all. That is something that we've often thought would be quite a useful tool. Does anybody in the audience want to add something to the discussion? I think all the microphones might be up here, so please do come and join the panel.
Thank you. I was thinking that I'm not sure if you mentioned the layman's report, because all life projects, in the end, needs to produce a layman report. So it's a very short, it's not technical, supposedly. And it's quite, well, usually when I want to know a bit about the project that ended, I will search for the layman report, because I can get all the information, the basic information for non-technical person, if it's not an area. So, but that is specifically for each project and doesn't help to aggregate all of the project results. But I was thinking in another aspect, well, I work more with the bird species, and usually we have at the European level the species action plan for the endangered species. why not try to have a kind of a plan for invasive species in which we can address where this species is a problem for each country, or where it's identified, what kind of management measures or solutions are being adopted. Well, and these plans could be fed by the project results, and to concentrate by each species what is being done. It's like a database, but with a little bit more of information, just an idea.
Thank you. I mean, so the invasive species regulation requires individual member states to have action plans. But, you know, but in a way that almost creates a problem, because what you don't, you know, you want a broader, almost European-wide action plan. I don't know. Yeah.
The problem, and I don't know how to solve it, so this is a bit of a negative comment, is how to mobilize that information. Because, for example, 2 years ago, we tried to get information on management of invasive species in Spain, and we asked managers all over the country to give, if they could give us data on which species they are managing and how much it cost, and if it was successful or not. And it was lots of work, because we had to contact every single region and every single national park and all of that. We got really little information, some regions more, some regions less, but we tried to dig in to see what was happening, why we couldn't get this information, and the information that we got, and makes lots of sense, is that for many of the managers, managing invasive species is just one part of the work. Yeah. They have many other things on their plate. Even if it's only invasive species, they have so much work, and they don't have time to write down all this information. So then the information gets lost. But of course, there is not enough capacity to put all this information together. So what's the solution? More money, of course, and more capacity, but we don't have it. So I don't know what the solution is. But it would be great if every time that something is managed, you put it in a database. Yeah. But that requires time. So I don't know what the solution is.
Just two comments. The language. Someone mentioned that this is like a huge barrier, because within some countries it is easy, but within other countries, if it is not in the native language, most of the technicians will not read it. And this is really important. So this, I think, it's something to bear in mind. In any life project that has several countries, there is a strong effort to be made to be able to translate both the reports and also the web pages, which is something which is much more difficult to do and to maintain than it looks if you have it in several languages. It's a lot of work. It is a lot of work. And the other thing that I would like to point out is one thing that we created in Portugal not long ago. It's a network which is within the Portuguese Society of Ecology. It's called the INVECO, Invasion Ecology Network. The Portuguese Society of Ecology is a scientific network, but this association. But this network, it's open to people outside the scientists group. So anyone interested in invasive species can join. And we have been using this network, which has, in fact, a lot of people, much more than the Portuguese Association of Ecology, to promote the transfer of knowledge and information.
Do you want to add something?
Yeah, maybe I'm too optimistic, but why not start from the projects we have here? And we try to create a simple mask and try to see if it works.
A network or a...
Yeah, the network for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to try to mobilize all the info.
Yeah? Exactly, yes. That would be great.
Anna?
So Anna's just volunteering to contact everybody and collate all the information on...
No, but that's exactly what I was going to raise.
Yeah.
Is, I think a bit the problem is the continuity and the sustainability of something like this, who is going to put this information together? Who is going to keep it up? Who is going to maintain it and make sure that it's updated all the time? All of us are super busy, lack capacity, etc. So I think that this is a bit the difficult part of it is, we can start, I guess any of us can start, or we can start all together, but then how can we actually maintain it and make sure that, someone takes care of it to continue and make sure that it's updated and etc.
And Jenny is not known here.
No, he's not, exactly, yeah. Yeah.
So we can...
Yeah.
He did say, I commented on this with him, and
yeah.
he did say that EASIN is quite interested in contributing as they can to the live projects and this kind of information being transferred and etc. So maybe they are a good starting point for us to try to, they are definitely the right platform to have this information in. So maybe some conversations with them make sense, yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else want to add anything to this?
Can I ask another question? Sorry, I was just wondering, because it's interesting that we are trying to kind of, make a network or create some kind of linkage between the live projects on invasive species, but I was wondering if anyone knows, is this being done for any other field? Like, I don't know, like projects on pollinators, do they try to create a network of all the live projects working on that, or is it just us on invasive species? I have no idea.
I don't know.
I'm aware about the network about the Asian hornet, Colossum, at European level.
Right.
So they joined, they developed, they established this network in several European countries to fight Vespa velutina. It's Colossus or Colossum, I don't remember. So.
Yeah, it's actually, so through the project that we ran on the humane management, we did come up with the idea, and it was received quite well, to set up, I don't know if all of you are members of the Aliens listserv, which is essentially a global network that people kind of email. But if we had a European network purely focused on the management of invasive alien species, so not a scientific network like what Alien listserv can be, really focused on sharing knowledge on the management. And if we had a European version of that, maybe we could start it off, like we say, with the people in this room. I don't want to step on toes of Invasives.net or others, but I'm just wondering, just a simple, open access email listserv. And I think it would be great if we could start collating. Ricardo, through the work that we did with the European Commission, we set out what we think would be a really useful set of standard criteria and data to collect from life projects that would really support the management moving forward on those key criteria that I mentioned earlier. And all the life projects have that information, but they might be just buried in a report. And that's very difficult to access. I don't know if anyone thinks whether that would be a good idea to have a European network of aliens, like an email network. I don't know.
Because we have informally, because I remember after 2019 I came in contact with several people. The meeting we had in Brussels, other projects like participating and just to see what they were doing. So
it exists. Something exists.
Yeah, unofficially.
Unofficially.
Yeah. I remember a long time ago, we talked about also a cost action about the management.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Be plenty of time to propose sessions.
I was thinking that maybe starting to meet
or
regularly.
pre-sessions. In fact, there was one in Dublin of this kind, I think. We could do something of the same kind.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe taking a slightly different route. In terms of what key project outputs do you think should be included that really support the knowledge transfer out of the project? So if you were setting up a life project or another project, what would you recommend that should be included to make sure that the communication of the results of the project are effective. And I'm not talking here about making sure that your end stakeholders, the objective of your project is to reduce, you know, an invasive species, therefore you want to engage with the anglers. I'm talking about what can you include within a project to try and improve its communication, maybe to other projects?
The usual solutions are these type of things that we are doing over here. I think this is the standard. So if the question is if we have other ideas, I'm not sure. I'm hoping that the audience can provide something.
But do you mean to improve? Sorry.
Thank you.
Se me ocurre, no sé si ya se ha dicho y me he perdido algo, pero a lo mejor se podría añadir un requerimiento como proyecto LIFE a partir de ahora, como una acción obligatoria, y entre todas las que son una más, nutrir una base de datos de todos los aspectos en cuanto a management por especie de las actividades que han dado buenos resultados. Y entonces en esta base se quedaría información que a lo mejor al acabar un proyecto se perdería, pero quedándose en esta base de datos y se puede hacer a priori con los proyectos que ya han acabado, de lo que ha funcionado y lo que no ha funcionado. No sé, se me ocurre. Gracias.
Sure.
Is it better in English, in Spanish? I don't know.
Whichever you mind.
Okay. The problem with that is where do you store the database, who collates the database, who keeps the database running. I think when it's a big database like that, you need someone dedicated to that main thing, especially if it's for the whole Europe. I mean, if it's only for live projects, not. But if it's for management at the European scale, you probably need someone dedicated to that, right?
Yeah.
It would have to be centralized by the European Commission, probably.
Yeah.
Someone that would be doing this full time.
Yeah, and not being funded through projects.
Exactly.
And I think that's where we often fall down, is that a lot of these databases that are set up, as we all know, many die because the project ends, and so it does need, but to me, you know, the policymakers set these targets, and then we try and suggest solutions, and hopefully, if we can convince them that this is required, they should be able to free the money, but whether that's there or not.
I mean, no, you have already the database of live project, no?
Yeah,
But you have
yes,
to look for
yeah.
maybe other different key to look like to scratch the list or to add more info on that fact sheet. I don't know.
I mean, that would be kind of like the lowest hanging fruit, wouldn't it? Is if we could get some kind of additional fields added into the reporting framework, which could then be searchable in the live project database. But then I suppose it's how would that implement, you know, across all the other non-invasive species life projects, or EASIN. I mean, you know, that would be another, you know, logical home if they have species pages to incorporate that information, which would allow additional non-life projects to be brought in.
I was just wondering if, as another tool, I mean, a bit like Pedro was saying, I guess these kind of meetings are the best way for us to link, well, for the different life projects to link up with each other and know what they are doing. Something that could be suggested, well, to the Commission, I guess, I don't know by who or how, is, you know, would be to hold these events, to put together all the life projects working on invasive species every year, every other year, you know, something like that. And then, you know, if you have the platform to put them all together, then it will be much easier to eventually create an European network or to create a database or whatever outputs would come out of it. But if it would be
a bit more of a formal thing, yeah, eventually organized by the Commission or by the LIFE project or by CINEA, the organization or something, then it would definitely, you know, yeah, kind of push more things to happen involving all these LIFE projects working on invasive species. But again, yeah, I don't know how we would suggest this, or, I mean, yeah, we can talk to the people we have linkages with, and or people from the LIFE projects can.
Got 5.
I was thinking maybe we can start with the species on in the Union list. Yeah. And the EASIN is collating the info from different databases. So if you have a page with the list, and for each species, it connect to the different LIFE projects, maybe it could be a start. Very simple. But
Exactly. Exactly.
I don't know. Eugenia will be very happy.
I know.
Also, in a more positive note, there have been things like GLONASS or big databases like that that started with no money, no funding at all, and just a group of people that, okay, let's start it together, then you get a small project, then you get another project. So if maybe a group of us get together and is to put together the database, maybe it's not going to happen next month, but in a couple of months, maybe. Well,
Yeah?
maybe it's too positive thinking, but I think it could be done. I don't know.
So go ahead, please.
What is really within the European Commission. So they should work on how to make it more accessible.
So circa BC is not something that you find easy to navigate. I don't. I agree. I fully agree. I fully agree. I think we have a couple of minutes left. If anybody else would like to say anything, then there we go. Freddie.
I'm going to change a bit the point of view.
No,
and maybe
please.
I'm going to go to that bubble that someone talked about, because of course we can improve all the database, all the information systems, but I think that in the title we are talking about transference of knowledge. And maybe we must go to the real objective, that is fight against invasive species, and we are one more time focusing on our work that is really nice and it's good and we can improve it, but I think that there is a big problem here, a big hole, that is transference. Of course, there are many stakeholders. We are not talking about all of them, but at least one is necessary. That is the one that is applying all the practical things, laws, and all the practical approach and the solutions. And always we are lacking these people on the meetings that we are making. And I don't know if that people is interested in consult so many databases, so many information. I don't know the solution, but just here, I think that there is just one person, you, that is part of this administration.
Yeah.
And I think that without that, there is no solve for the problem. Then how to engage that people? Of course, there are too many other stakeholders that we've been talking about, but how to engage these people? Because the European Commission is not going to do that work. We need to go to local or to regional or to stattal administration. How to have these people involved? I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's,
Sorry.
Yes. On that note, no, thank you very much. Okay. Where's Catherine? Or I think we have. It's now past, so I think we have finished. Unless anybody else wants to add anything.
Anyone has a...
Thank you very much, and thank you
thank you to the panel as well. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Ok, bueno, vamos a presentar algo muy rápido para hacer el cierre del evento. No, todavía no. Un segundo. Segundo. El internet está fatal. No entiendo por qué el internet está fatal. Es que no creo. Botón aquí.
Si es que no me ha llegado nada. No, no, esto.
Sí.
Experiencia, ok. Espera. Es lo de copia, esto sí, copia. Ok. Vale.
Ok. Bueno, un poco para ayudar a hacer lamento la demora, para ayudar a hacer la recapitulación en lo que ha consistido el evento. Vamos a intentar poner en contexto lo que hemos trabajado en estos 2 últimos días. Se han presentado acciones, actividades, proyectos que ocurren en 18 países de Europa, lo cual es claramente algo no solamente que muestra la realidad del problema de las invasoras, sino el empuje que hay a nivel europeo en toda la región, ¿no? Se han dado 35 presentaciones en solamente 2 días, donde se han involucrado 19 proyectos live y otros tipos de proyectos. De los 19 está incluido el live Invasacua. Y hemos tenido 39 presentadores y, bueno, lamentablemente, por lo que están presentes, el premio se lo lleva Marcus el bailador. Por eso aquí está un ícono bailando. Así que hemos tenido una gran representatividad de la región europea. En estos proyectos no solamente hemos aprendido, hemos conocido sobre la problemática de las invasoras, sino el impacto que generan en especies nativas, que son muy importantes desde el punto de vista de la biodiversidad que alberga la región. Además, hemos podido conocer innumerables acciones realizadas por todos los diferentes proyectos, enfocadas en los 4 bloques que nos han promovido este evento: la comunicación, la sensibilización, la ciencia ciudadana y la transferencia de conocimiento. Insisto, creo que ha sido muy positivo no solamente hablar de lo positivo, sino también de lo que ha fracasado y que han abierto esa información para que el resto pueda aprender y no caer en las mismas situaciones. Además, hemos tenido la oportunidad de trabajar en una dinámica que no solamente nos ha ayudado a conocernos personalmente entre los que han participado en cada grupo, sino que también nos ha ayudado a poder expresar esas acciones positivas o experiencias positivas y negativas que hemos vivido en nuestra experiencia profesional. Esto además no solamente ayuda a que cada uno de ustedes se lleve esas experiencias como suyas, sino que es muy importante, puesto que parte de los resultados de este evento es compartir una serie de recomendaciones a la oficina de Bruselas, donde podemos plantear, como se han planteado en esta mesa redonda, aquellas situaciones o experiencias que consideramos críticas para futuros proyectos live, lo cual al final va a generar un mayor impacto en el trabajo que se realiza con estas especies. Todo ello ha repercutido, este evento, en impacto en prensa, como lo que ha salido hoy, no solamente en La Vanguardia, sino también en otros medios de comunicación, y en lo cual ayuda a que la población en general conozca sobre la problemática. Es cierto que hay una gran parte de la población que ya lo conoce, pero todo lo que reforcemos es más. Esto no se hubiera podido hacer sin el trabajo de los compañeros de EFE, evidentemente, pero sobre todo sin la participación de todos ustedes, puesto que el evento se hace por ustedes y sois ustedes los que han hecho posible esto. Y por último, es muy importante también que no solamente venimos aquí a fortalecer relaciones profesionales, sino también relaciones personales. Y esas relaciones personales que se desarrollan o se refuerzan en este tipo de eventos, al final tienen un impacto en lo profesional y en el trabajo que ustedes realizan. Personalmente ha sido realmente un placer para mí poder ser parte de este equipo de profesionales que han hecho que este evento sea posible y la verdad me han transmitido muchísima inspiración, así que de verdad felicidades por el trabajo que hacen. Les paso ahora a la compañera Kate, que va a dar las últimas palabras del evento. Gracias.
Bueno, después de estas conclusiones, poco más que decir, que suscribo todo lo que ha dicho José. Creo que a lo largo de todas estas sesiones ha sido un evento fructífero. Creo que todos estarán de acuerdo conmigo que hemos pasado de una variedad de regiones geográficas, especies, a enfoques, aproximaciones. Todos coincidimos en que compartimos desafíos muy parecidos, casi que diríamos que los mismos desafíos, pero también que también compartimos soluciones y sobre todo experiencia y conocimiento de un grupo valiosísimo de expertos, gestores que están muy motivados para seguir trabajando y abordando este reto de abordar el problema del impacto que tienen las especies invasoras sobre la biodiversidad. Así que me queda es agradecer, por supuesto, a todos los participantes y a los ponentes que compartieron su información para que esto fuera posible y para que todos nos enteremos de lo que está pasando alrededor de este tema. Por supuesto, a nuestros socios del proyecto Invasacua que colaboraron conjuntamente para organizar esta actividad, especialmente a la Universidad de Murcia, a EFEverde, por supuesto, y a la Sociedad Ibérica de Ictología. Entre nosotros teníamos que organizar esta actividad y estamos muy contentos de haberla terminado de esta manera. A todo el equipo detrás de este trabajo, mis compañeros de la UICN, tanto mis compañeros de la UICN de Cambridge, que siempre nos apoyan en todas estas actividades, mis compañeros de la UICN de Málaga, que también han estado trabajando duramente en los distintos puestos de los roles de trabajo en este evento. Por supuesto, considero que como parte del equipo de UICN a José y su equipo de reportería gráfica, que han sido fundamentales para facilitar toda esta actividad, y a nuestro equipo técnico también, tanto los intérpretes por su valiosa labor como siempre, un placer seguir trabajando con ustedes. Nuestro equipo técnico de sonido del Bazar del Cineísta también, que han estado aquí trabajando duramente para que todo funcione perfecto. Por supuesto, el equipo de EFEverde, que ya lo mencioné, pero que también han trabajado duramente ahí detrás de bambalinas. El equipo de la Noria, todo el personal de la Noria, que ha sido muy amable y que nos ha permitido estar en este sitio precioso. Así que yo me voy contenta porque creo que hemos conseguido el objetivo que queríamos, que era reforzar las relaciones, hacer networking y conseguir que todas estas relaciones, espero en el futuro, se consoliden y que consigamos mejorar, crear sinergias y tener mejores proyectos en el futuro. Así que espero verlos pronto en proyectos, en otros eventos y por supuesto aquí en Málaga cuando quieran venir. Un aplauso para todos ustedes.